The American Revolutionary War, often glorified as a heroic struggle for liberty and justice, was a complex event that shaped the future of the United States in significant ways. One aspect of the war that has been long overlooked or minimized in history is the crucial role played by black soldiers. These men, many of them enslaved, fought for their freedom, their dignity, and for a country that had not yet fully recognized their humanity. The participation of black soldiers in the Revolutionary War represents a paradox where the fight for independence from British rule coexisted with the oppressive institution of slavery. Understanding the contributions, motivations, and experiences of black soldiers in this war offers a deeper and more nuanced appreciation of the American Revolution itself. The first thing to acknowledge is the sheer number of black soldiers who participated in the war. By some estimates, over 5,000 black men fought for the Continental Army, alongside a smaller number who fought on the British side. These numbers may seem small in comparison to the overall size of the armies, but their contributions were disproportionate to their numbers. Black soldiers often fought in critical battles, served in dangerous roles, and exhibited extraordinary bravery in the face of racism and adversity. Despite being a marginalized group, they were instrumental in the war effort and were often placed on the front lines of battle. The motivations of black soldiers were varied, but always tied to the pursuit of freedom and equality. Many of them were promised freedom in exchange for their service. In the early years of the war, both the British and American sides were reluctant to enlist black soldiers, fearing that armed black men could become a threat to the social order or lead to slave rebellions. However, the demands of the war soon overrode these concerns. In 1775, Lord Dunmore, the royal governor of Virginia, issued a proclamation offering freedom to any enslaved person who would leave their masters and fight for the British. This was a bold move that sent shockwaves through the colonies, where slavery was deeply entrenched. Many enslaved men saw this as their best chance for freedom and flocked to the British side, swelling the ranks of what became known as Lord Dunmore's Ethiopian Regiment. These men were often treated as expendable, given dangerous tasks, and their loyalty was seldom rewarded in the long term. Yet for many, the mere hope of freedom was worth the risk. On the American side, the Continental Army was initially hesitant to enlist black soldiers, but as the war dragged on and the need for more manpower became acute, attitudes began to change. George Washington, who had initially banned the recruitment of black men, reversed his stance after the British began recruiting enslaved people. By 1777, black soldiers were fighting in nearly every major battle of the war. Some states, particularly in the North, began to offer freedom to enslaved men who enlisted in the army. Others allowed free black men to serve in integrated units alongside white soldiers. It is important to note that the experience of black soldiers varied depending on where they lived, their status as free or enslaved, and the attitudes of the people around them. In many cases, black soldiers were integrated into the regular army, fighting side by side with white soldiers. This was especially true in the North, where free black men were more numerous and where racial attitudes were slightly more progressive than in the South. In other cases, black soldiers were placed in segregated units or assigned menial tasks. Yet, despite the discrimination they faced, black soldiers proved their valor time and again. One of the most famous examples is the Battle of Rhode Island in 1778, where an all-black regiment, known as the 1st Rhode Island Regiment, fought valiantly against British forces. This regiment, made up largely of formerly enslaved men who had been promised freedom in exchange for their service, played a crucial role in holding off British forces, earning a reputation for their courage and determination. The story of black soldiers in the American Revolution is not just one of military service, but also of the struggle for recognition and equality. Even as they fought for the independence of the American colonies, many black soldiers were fighting for their personal freedom. For enslaved men, the war offered the possibility of liberation, either through promises made by the British or through service in the Continental Army. For free black men, the war was a chance to assert their equality and prove their loyalty to a nation that had long marginalized them. The irony, of course, is that while these men were fighting for the ideals of liberty and justice, the society they were fighting for was built on the foundation of slavery. After the war, the promises made to black soldiers were often broken. Many of the formerly enslaved men who fought for the British were either re-enslaved or abandoned, while some were evacuated to British colonies, like Nova Scotia, where they established free black communities. Others were left to fend for themselves in a hostile and racist society. Those who had fought for the American side fared little better. While some states honored their promises and granted freedom to black veterans, others reneged on their commitments. Even in states where black soldiers were granted freedom, they faced intense discrimination and were often denied the land and pensions promised to them. The post-war period was a time of profound disappointment for many black veterans. Having risked their lives for a country that had promised them freedom, they found themselves in a society that was still deeply racist and unequal. Some, like Crispus Attucks, who had been killed in the Boston Massacre before the war, became symbols of the revolutionary cause. But for most, the post-war period was marked by poverty, exclusion, and broken promises. In some cases, black veterans were forced back into slavery, while others struggled to survive in a society that was not yet ready to fully embrace the ideals of liberty and equality for all. Despite these challenges, the legacy of black soldiers in the American Revolution is one of resilience and determination. Their contributions to the war effort were crucial, and their bravery in the face of oppression laid the groundwork for future generations of black Americans to continue the fight for equality. The Revolutionary War was, in many ways, the first chapter in a much longer struggle for civil rights that would continue for centuries. The participation of black soldiers in the war challenged the prevailing notions of race and citizenship, forcing the fledgling American nation to confront the contradictions at the heart of its founding ideals. The role of black soldiers in the American Revolutionary War also had broader implications for the institution of slavery in the United States. In the years following the war, the northern states began to take steps toward abolition, influenced in part by the service of black soldiers and the growing recognition of the hypocrisy of fighting for freedom while denying it to others. The southern states, however, doubled down on slavery, entrenching the institution even further. This division would eventually lead to the Civil War, another conflict in which black soldiers would play a crucial role. In conclusion, the role of black soldiers in the American Revolutionary War is a story of courage, sacrifice, and the relentless pursuit of freedom. These men fought not just for the independence of the American colonies, but for their personal liberty and the hope of a better future. Their contributions to the war effort were vital, and their legacy is one of enduring importance. Thank you for watching this video on the role of black soldiers in the American Revolutionary War. If you know anyone in the military, please share this video. Thank you for your service.